Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's hopefully fun discussion style video, we're going to be looking at some older Scroll Saw Woodworking magazines that were recently found while doing some spring cleaning. Spring is officially here now in 2025, and if you guys remember last year, we cleaned out the storage shed that is behind the sticker swap sticker wall. We are cleaning out another small building, the family, mainly me and my mom, and when we were cleaning, we found a filing cabinet. Now, I knew the filing cabinet was out there, but I did not know what all of the contents were in it. I thought it might have been some of my old comic books from childhood and things like that. So I got it out in the yard for my mom to look through while I was looking through some other boxes and everything, just doing some cleaning. You know, spring cleaning comes around every year, you know, as people try to get tidy and get better organized and everything. But she happened to find a bunch of very old Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazines by Fox Chapel Publishing, as well as the discontinued Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines. These are some of the very first woodworking magazines that I ever picked up, and you see we have a stack of Scroll Saw Workshop magazines here, and then an even bigger stack of Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines, as well as some of the patterns. So I just thought it would be fun to hop on here, hopefully not draw the video out entirely too long and bore you guys, and just hold them up and briefly talk about them, and if I had any specific memories with those magazines, and hopefully also get ideas for future Scroll Saw project videos. Now, at the top of the pile was this pack here. It says the Winfield Pattern Club, and my late grandmother subscribed me to this when I was younger and got into woodworking. I think this subscription service was $20 a month. That's US currency. I could be wrong. It could have been a little less or a little more expensive. I can't remember which. But every month the Winfield pattern people, the Winfield collection, would send you a pack of patterns, and it was around 10 to 12 full-size pages that you could photocopy and make stuff. And I have a bunch of these, and a lot of these were catered to seasonal events, you know, whatever season was coming around. And I'm going to hold one of these up here. I just want to touch on this real quickly because I do have a bunch of these stored away. But here you see, like in the photos here, they were seasonal packs packed with different individual patterns. So you had a Christmas one, you had a red, white, and blue one for 4th of July, you had a fall one, you had a Halloween one, you had an Easter themed pack and everything. But they came with patterns like this, and each of them said, like, see, sheet 9 of 12. And they had the full-size patterns. And this one here looks like an Easter set here. I see some Easter eggs. I see the quote, "He is risen." But you know, they were mostly double-sided. Occasionally the other side would be one of those big yard silhouettes that you could cut out, you know, with a jigsaw or coping saw or something. You know, the cowboy leaning against the fence post. We have that pattern as well. But I'm thankful that this one came along. It usually came with a full color sheet kind of representing everything that was in here, but I don't see it in this pack. This will be stored with the rest of them. And we also have 2 pattern sections here. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. When I got into Scroll Saw Woodworking at the age of 14 under my grandfather's guidance, I did not really care for all of the articles in the magazine. This is the main thing I was concerned with, the full-size pattern sections, because we did have a desktop computer when I was young. We were thankful to have one of those. And basically what I wanted was the magazine itself. I'm going to hold this one up for example. I'd just take the patterns out and put the magazine, I guess, in that filing cabinet, you know, because I wasn't interested in the articles. But as I've gotten older, I'm in my later 30s now, I do appreciate the articles and reading them and how people came up with the creative ideas for the patterns and projects featured in each individual magazine. So let me show you this. This is a clear tote that stays out here in the workshop, and it is packed full of old patterns. So what I can do now is going to be a monumental task to go through and do this. Well, I say it's monumental because it's just so many patterns here, but just be able to go through and reconnect the patterns with the corresponding magazine, if that makes any sense. Because a lot of the patterns that I've looked through here, I'll be like, man, that looks good, but I'd like to see a visual representation of it. And that's one cool thing about the magazines. All of the magazines have the visual representation and a completed photo of what the pattern represents, if that makes any sense. But I want to go through these here, just going to highlight a few of them. I don't want to, again, draw the video out entirely too long, but we're going to begin with Scroll Saw Workshop. Again, that was the original name of it. Now it's Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine. This one here is from spring Spring 2005, issue number 18 has the wooden puzzles on the cover. And what I like is, after a couple of pages here, you have some representations of the patterns featured in the magazines there. So you have some beautiful designs here. Again, as I go through these, I'm going to try to keep a mental note of projects that I might want to bring to life visually in future Monday Scroll Saw project videos. Here we have issue number 16, fall 2004, with the Tyrannosaurus Rex puzzle. I remember you could get those puzzles back when I was a kid. You know, they would be kind of in perforated wood, and you would punch them out, and it'd have a diagram on how to assemble them. I'm going to try to quickly turn to the projects represented in each magazine. There you see those. If you want to pause the video and look at the pictures and magazines a little bit closer, you can. Here we have Scroll Saw Workshop Holiday 2004, issue 17, with a nice intarsia wreath there on the cover. And I'm really excited to get all the patterns matched back up with the corresponding magazines, because that was something I really wanted to find and catalog. Here we have the projects featured in this magazine. And again, this is not all the patterns featured. This is just the highlights. You can see all of the articles here, as well as the patterns listed in each and every magazine. Scroll Saw Workshop number 19, issue summer 2005, so here we go. And some of these companies I've noticed, Wildwood Designs here, I don't even know if they're still in production, and the wooden teddy bear, I know I used to get their catalogs in the mail, and I know some of them catered to more of the high intensity fretwork clocks, you know, the little spindles for like the porches you would put on the clock, like the little balls you would put on a post and things like that. But let's see, there is some of the projects in that magazine. Here we have Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts. Again, it switched names throughout the production history, so it began as Scroll Saw Workshop, and then now it is Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts. This is fall 2018, issue 72. There you see some of those represented projects. I really like this compound cut vase there. You cut out 4 of those individually and glue them together to make that vase. A fellow member of the NC Woodworkers that I'm a member of had made this vase, so I have been able to see it live and in person, so to speak. But it has a nice fretwork shelf there. Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts, fall 2019, issue 76. Nice intarsia dragon. You guys know I love medieval and mythology and folklore and things like that. There is the projects featured. Again, this video is just meant to be fun, to where I can go through these and go down memory lane, so to speak. Here we have winter 2017, issue 69, with an intarsia angel on the cover. Intarsia is just so cool, using all of the exotic woods. And then we have the projects featured there. It looks like a nice little Lincoln log cabin, a nice little figure that, you know, he's a little pull toy. And if you guys remember when the fidget spinners were very popular, I know I had one, and it looks like a compound cut Christmas ornament there, and a nativity scene. Here we have another one, spring 2005, issue number 18, and we've already looked at that. Apparently I had multiples of a couple of them, because I know periodically Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine would send magazines out as like a promotion for fellow scrollers and everywhere, and I'm deeply appreciative of it. And here is the first magazine that is very nostalgic for me, because I believe it was one of the very first Scroll Saw magazines that I went out and purchased when I was getting interested, really interested, so to speak, in Scroll Saw Woodworking. But this is Scroll Saw Workshop, issue number 14, spring 2004. And I do remember making one of these little characters here for my late grandmother. I think I made the little boy here. He holds a little flower pot there, and he's meant to sit on a shelf or countertop and have a little flower or herb plant in it, you know. But wow, that brings back a lot of memories. And see, the patterns are in this one, so, you know, I'm glad I kept the patterns with the corresponding magazine. And there is some of the designs. And I remember doing this Native American portrait for my mom for her birthday, because we are part Native American on my mom's side. But yeah, a lot of these patterns here really bring back a lot of memories. Wow, 2004. So the magazine is Wow, is the magazine really over 20 years old? Wow. Here we have, yeah, holding just one. Summer 2006, issue 23. Nice little illuminated Japanese style lantern there. There we have the patterns featured there. I remember the letter boxes were very popular several years ago, you know, where you could make those and put little jewelry and earrings in them and just do like the last letter of your name or your spouse's name or your lover's name or something like that. Here we have Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts Ultimate Scrolling Patterns Collection, Volume 1, 52 full-size patterns. It does not say... Yes, this is December 2006 is what's on it. Like a compilation magazine of just scroll saw patterns of all skill ranges, I am sure. There is the patterns represented in this compilation magazine. Scroll Saw Workshop, Fall 2005, issue number 20. There are the patterns represented there. You have that neat compound cut puzzle lizard. Of course, I'm always on the hunt for compound cut projects because you guys seem to really love them when I bring them to life over on the platform. Now we have Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts Spring 2019 issue 74, and this is the last Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine that I'll hold up, and then we'll transition into another form of magazine. But there is the patterns represented in here. We have the compound cut chess pieces, and this was the main reason I bought this magazine. This was when I was starting to get curious again about the magazines. Of course, you have a huge resource of patterns over on the internet, such as Steve Good, such as Scroll Saw Village, and you know, just an image search, you can bring up some pumpkin carving stencils to use as scroll saw patterns, and that is what I was doing when I got back into scroll saw woodworking in early 2013. You know, I was kind of, do I still want to do this? Am I still interested in it? But the more I've done it, the more I realized that I still enjoyed it wholeheartedly. So this was one of those magazines that I did pick up, and I do remember making one of those compound cut chess pieces. I hope the pattern section is in here. Yes, it is, because I would like to bring one of those little chess pieces to life in a future compound cut video. But that's the final Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine. And now I can set these aside. I don't want them to fall over. And now we are going to transition into Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines. And this was a very popular magazine. It not only featured scroll saw woodworking, but it also featured some carving from time to time, and it was just very interesting. And I do remember getting these fondly. The local mall, Holly Hill Mall here in Burlington, used to have a Books A Millions. Before it was Books A Millions, it was Will's Bookstore, I believe that was the name of it, but then it transitioned into Books A Million, and that's where I got a lot of my magazines and comics from when I was younger. It's sadly no longer there. It transitioned and closed down, and now it is a shoe store. So, you know, this magazine I know has been discontinued, so I'm thankful to have all of these magazines to go back down memory lane with. Here we have Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazine, March 2004. And I don't believe they did issue numbers. I think they just done like months. So March 2004 with the nice owl and gator there on the cover. And they were kind of the same style as Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine, with having a preview of the patterns featured. And I do remember making that Chinese dragon clock there. It was one of my very first mid-range to intermediate style patterns. That was back when I had an old 16-inch Delta scroll saw, and you had to kind of use the tool to do all of the blade changes and everything. So that was still a little bit tedious for me to cut out back in the day. Look really cool here. If there's any patterns you guys see in these magazines, if you want to go back and look again, I know this video is a little bit longer than normal, and projects you want to see me bring to life over here visually, please let me know down in the comments. June 2005, nice wildlife inspired design there on the cover. There is the designs featured there. So really cool, and there's a lot of these magazines to go through. I'm going to try to do it quickly. Here we have September 2004, and I do remember making this wolf portrait for my mom. I remember going to the local library at the time, and you could get copies for 10 cents, and I photocopied this pattern, and I used a wood burning tool with the little paddle piece to iron on the pattern onto the wood. Of course, the pattern ended up being reversed due to that nature, but I cut that out of a piece of 3/4 inch pine for my mom, and she really loved that. Here we have the patterns featured, and if you guys remember, we did bring this horse leaf design to life in a previous video. So really cool to now have the physical magazine that I can put the corresponding pattern in when I go to organize everything. June 2004, you have a nice dog leading the horse there on the farm. And see, this one says special edition, our 100th issue. So apparently this is June 2004, issue 100. There you see some of the projects featured. And again, there is a tree spirit face. So they had carving in the magazines from time to time, which was really cool. So it wasn't always catered to scroll saw woodworking, so to speak. Creative Woodworking and Crafts, March 2005. Has a nice dog portrait there, intarsia on the cover. And then there is the projects featured, and here is another one. If you guys remember, we brought the American Bald Eagle portrait to life. I think I done that for a 4th of July scroll saw project video, and it has a lot of veining work in it to bring out some beautiful details. Special 2006 holiday issue. Alright, it's just a thicker than normal magazine here. Holiday 2006. You see the beautiful scroll saw village there with Santa Claus and his reindeer on the cover. There is the patterns featured. Again, if you guys want to take a longer look at these and just pause the video, you totally can. January 2008, nice beautiful intricate design there with a cat. Looks like it's sitting on a piano with some musical instruments surrounding it. January 2008 is this magazine. And there you see the projects featured. Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazine, September 2005, with a beautiful maritime portrait there. It looks like a sailing ship, and you have the rigging, like the ropes that go up the side to go up to the mast, comprised in a ship's wheel. So very beautiful intarsia project. And there you see the patterns featured. And I don't know if these magazines are available online. I do know I went over to eBay just out of curiosity and typed in the magazine's name, and a lot of these magazines did come up. So if you guys want to seek out any of these magazines, I don't know if eBay would be the best option, you know, for you to go and do that, but I know there is a valuable resource of scroll saw woodworking and patterns in the magazines that I'm showing you. March 2006 has a beautiful steam locomotive portrait on it, and just the detail in these is so beautiful. There you see the patterns represented. November 2005 with a nice fish portrait. Looks like he's going in for his breakfast or lunch. And then here is the patterns represented. Again, I'm trying to keep a mental note if I see any patterns here that I want to potentially bring to life in future scroll saw project videos. Again, my friends, I'm never ever going to run out of scroll saw woodworking patterns to bring to life over here on the platform. At least I hope not. You know, there's just so many available in the big wide world we live in. August 2006 with a nice deer themed intarsia piece on the cover. Creative Woodworking and Crafts was really fond of putting the intarsia projects on the cover that I'm noticing here. And here we have the patterns represented in projects. Almost done with this stack. We got about 10 more to go through, I think. August 2005 with the grizzly bear, and then down here in the corner you have the fish and fish hook design. Now that would be a nice little fall or summertime project to bring to life over on the platform. August 2005. And there is the patterns in the magazine. Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazine, January 2005, with a nice duck on the cover, the intarsia style, with a nice little cat portrait down in the corner. And there is the patterns represented. Again, a lot of these magazines I bought and just popped the patterns out and then just put these, I guess, in that filing cabinet we found, you know. But I'm happy to have them all back under one roof, so to speak, you know, and collectively together with the patterns that are in that little plastic bin I showed you at the beginning of the video. September 2006 with a nice intarsia windmill on the cover. And if you guys remember any of these magazines as well, or have any fond memories with any individual magazine that I'm holding up here, please let me know down in the comments. I'm happy to have that conversation with you guys. You know, it's always cool to go down memory lane. Here is the patterns represented. We have November 2006. It says 50 plus great new patterns, last minute holiday ideas, with an intarsia frog on the cover. And a nice little dolphin box down there in the corner. November 2006, and there is the patterns represented. Here we have March 2007, a gone fishing portrait and a nice horse themed intarsia project. And here again is the patterns featured in the magazine. And I do remember making this project here. I made this for my grandmother and my mom, and this was right back when I got back into scroll saw woodworking. It is a carousel themed and inspired wind chime, because Burlington has a historic, I think it's a Denzel carousel in our local city park. Remember, I went there and walked around it in a previous video when we were out and about, but I did make that project, and right now it is currently hanging under the eave of the workshop outside. So really cool to have this magazine back. It never went nowhere. It's just I'm happy to have it back out in the workshop itself. Creative Woodworking and Crafts, January 2007, and we are almost done here. There is the magazine, the patterns featured in the magazine itself. And here is another one we brought to life in a Shark Week themed scroll saw project video, the great white shark and shark tooth. Remember, at the time I just had the pattern section to hold up and show you, but now, you know, I can, with the magazine and the patterns themselves, give credit where credit is due to the pattern designers and everything. So the patterns featured there in that one. And here we have another copy of this one here. We've already looked at it. September 2004. Again, sometimes I ended up with multiple copies because companies would send out promotional magazines, you know, if they knew you were into scroll saw woodworking. Holiday 2005 issue has a nice line with the lamb. I'm sure that has a spiritual meaning. An angel design. Then you have some ornament designs there at the base. And back then, the magazines were only $6.49. That is U.S. currency, if you guys are curious. But the holiday issues always had tons and tons of ornaments featured in them, as well as some fun and fanciful designs. See, like you have that saw handle there, and the project says table saw, so kind of a little woodworking pun you could make and sit out in the workshop, as well as the saw there with the deer on it. Just two more to go. Here we have April 2005, beautiful fretwork, looks like some tiger or lion cubs on it, and then it had exclusive Learn to Wood Burn in color. And I remember doing this pattern here. Again, I got one of those cheap wood burners, you know, from the local hobby store. I might have got it from Walmart, and I photocopied the pattern again, and I done the iron-on transfer and went through with my wood burner and the various tips and made this little project here. So really cool, again, to have it under one roof. April 2005. And there is the patterns represented. And then the final one here, I know that was a lot to go through, August 2004, and you have the Intarsia baby turtle. I know my mom really loves sea turtles and everything, and they're just such beautiful creatures because they come in all shapes and sizes, and they are often cute to look at when they are swimming around. Then you have a rustic barn portrait there, or scene, diorama, and it looks like it's a clock. And there is the patterns represented in the August 2004 issue. So really, really cool. Now I have to find a place to store all of these magazines, but now, as I said at the beginning, I can take out the patterns, and I've got them organized from Winfield collection to Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazines to Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines. So when I've got some free time, I can just start organizing them and getting the patterns to go back with the corresponding magazine and match them up. That way everything is readily available when I go to look through them, and if I see a project or pattern that I want to bring to life visually on a future Scroll Saw project video. But I hope you found this video informative and hopefully fun. Hopefully it wasn't too long or drawn out for you guys. Again, if any of those magazines that I held up and showed you guys and talked about rings any kind of bell for you guys, please let me know down in the comment section below. I know the Creative Woodworking and Crafts magazines are discontinued now, but the Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazines, I know on their website, on Fox Chapel Publishing, you can buy the archival CDs, you know, that has back issues. A lot of them that I held up here are included in those old archival discs that you can get. Fox Chapel sent me those discs, and I'm thankful to have those. All of the magazines are loaded onto CD format, and the magazines are on PDF format, as well as the pull-out pattern sections, to where you can go and just quickly pick out the page to print out on your computer or at an office supply store where you can get copies made. But really, really cool. And again, if you've seen any patterns in the magazines that you guys would like to see me bring to life visually on a future Monday Scroll Saw project video, please let me know down in the comments below. But it was really cool seeing all those old magazines again. I know when I found them, I sent some pictures to some fellow woodworking friends, and they're like, hey man, you got to do a video where you go through these. I think it would be very fun. And indeed, it was very fun for me, and hopefully it was fun for you guys as well to go down memory lane with me. That's about all for this one. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me, as well as all my social media feeds, will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, and remember guys, if I can make it or do it, so can you guys. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.